Hey guys, how are you, my friends? I really cannot work under these conditions. But, hey, I had to check in with y'all with this first quarter moon because it's kind of insanity crazy. So I just highly recommend that you surrender now to all of the confusion and insanity and fantasy and delusion that you're going to be getting bombarded with for the next week. And the king of delusion, total delusions, is just going to be squaring off with himself and just not making sense at all. So it's not you guys, it's everybody else. And since I have no editing abilities here, so this is what you get. So this is really a rough format, you guys, and it's a super confusing, cloudy tone on top of it. So it probably won't make sense, but that's about par for the course on this, so I'm not too worried. This quarter moon, leading up to a full moon, let's recall that the sun being in Virgo, the moon being in Sagittarius, they're mutable signs. They're the end of a season. The mutable signs are always changing. They're very chameleon-like and adaptable to begin with, because what they do is they help us get ready to change. So that's why they're so adaptable. They take where they are. Virgo is in summer and does all of its work and details and rounding out all the harvest and everything that's grown, and is getting it organized neatly before the sun is packed up and shipped off to go into the southern hemisphere with the start of fall. On top of it, we have a full moon that is very close to the first day of fall. I don't know those dates exactly right now, but I'll never forget my naturopath, my chiropractic doctor friend, how she always said that the police referred to those full moons, within the week surrounding the first day of spring or the first day of fall, as being Crackers Week, because everybody just kind of goes crazy. So, yeah, this is what we're headed towards. But here's the good news. I am so glad we are finally at the end of this crazy fantasy illusion. I just don't even have words to describe. The what song is screaming through my head trying to describe this to you is Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. Is this real life or is this just fantasy? Right? That's what this is about. We have been in this Jupiter-Neptune square for the past year, which has contributed to so much of this ping-ponging, elusive, illusionary, deceptive, expansive ideology that is permeating everything and blanketing everything, but is intangible, and there's no seams or ends to it. That this haze, this fog, is finally coming to an end. And so, I mean, look at my chart here. I'm not even going to show you what it is, because look, all my notes. If you notice this big orange, it's supposed to be red. That's called the T-square. we have mutable signs squaring off with each other. So what do squares do? They create tension and action. In these mutable signs that are so adaptable, it's like they just leap from one thing to another to another. You can never pin them down. So there's just all this chameleon-like kind of escapism going on. On top of it, you have the sun and some other planets that are opposite Neptune. So we're going to have to pick between clarity of fact and thought and logic and reasoning, opposing fantasy, opposing disillusionment, opposing spirituality. I mean, this is just so ripe for conspiracy theories. And you know what? Putin's propaganda, the propaganda machine, has truly thrived in this past year. But oh my gosh, we are heading to the end of it. The Jupiter-Neptune, when we are in squares, this Jupiter in Sagittarius with Neptune in Pisces, this square, when it was exact, happened on January 13th. So we were kind of in a trance as a nation from December of 2018 through March of 2019. And look what we had to deal with. We had to deal with a government shutdown. I don't know when it's going to end. What are we going to do about this? But we need the shutdown. All these ideas on why the shutdown's happening, why it's good, and will it ever end? It was just such a hazy fog. But I do recall when it did end, when Roger Stone was finally indicted, and that's when Trump said enough, and he ended the shutdown that afternoon, and then Roger Stone stopped trending. Isn't that interesting? So we were in this trance from like December 2018 through March 2019. March is when we were supposed to get the Mueller report. And I think was Attorney General, I think he was confirmed after the shutdown. So in March, this is when we were really in that haze, and then we had those giant eclipses. So it's just like, what in the world is going on? And then we had Mercury retrograde. So then they wrote the Mueller report because he shut down the Mueller investigation. And we have this big giant report that doesn't make sense and nobody can read because it was written during such hazy, confusing times. I mean, they're all words that just make your brain go sideways when you try to read it. That's why nobody can read it. And then, and that's when the planets were going forward. They retrograded and went forward. So the other exact conjunction was June 16th. And now you can see here, we're at 15 Sagittarius. Neptune is retrograde 17 Pisces. And they're going to come into an exact square September 21st, which is like around the first day of fall, which is also, I haven't looked at the fall charts yet, but that is also setting up for just really destructive rain, mass quantities of rain and flooding with hurricanes. I'm almost afraid to look at that chart. But the good news is that September 21st is the last of these exact squares. And so we are going to finally clear the air. We're going to get away from this fanatical philosophies that are getting pushed right. And that is just naturally expanded by Jupiter. There's no end. And then we're going to get away from this fantasy dreamy thing that people are just caught into these fantasies of whatever. You know, it's just, we can't ever grasp it. It's just so, you know what I'm talking about. I can't even describe it anymore. But when we have big outer planets like this, well, Jupiter takes 12 years to go around, to orbit around the sun. Pluto is longest at like 250 years. Neptune, I can't remember off the top of my head. But when you get bigger planets, the outer planets moving like this, we all feel it. And these two planets in particular, when they square off, in the end, they let us break through the blocks that we have. We have so many blocks going on in our government right now. So many blocks with each other. This final square is going to let us finally break through that. And we're going to feel it through October, though. But after September 21st, it's going to lessen. And then when Jupiter goes into Capricorn, black and white Capricorn, it's like all of a sudden that haze really evaporates off. And we get down to business. We can get down to business on that as a whole. So what this has all meant is having us trying to be creative about things, but then also trying to figure out what's unrealistic. It's had us asking what's fact, what's fantasy, what's fiction. It's demanded that we had faith, but then we also have to be in check of ourselves of what's being delusional. You know, how many times we go back and forth asking the same questions because we can never get our heads wrapped around it, and that's for good reason. But here's the thing. When we get these squares with this Jupiter-Neptune square, that is when you hit rock bottom, and that's when we're able to finally change and end this procrastination and take risks and go forward. But we have to be careful to look before we leap. We have to be careful not to be gullible, and we cannot change too much at once or it'll collapse on its own. But here's the warning. This is the warning, because Jupiter, with these planets squaring it, it is really a cautious time where you cannot take your blunt words, blunt arrogance. You can't take it back. This is a time where words are going to hurt. And it could get pretty nasty. Because the thing is, with Mars here squaring Jupiter and the moon, it's also inviting competition. And when you invite competition, you invite superiority. And you also invite arrogance. And then when you have these people who are far right with their philosophies, kind of fanatics, they're going to be even more full of themselves. Okay? And Trump is going to try to do much more than he possibly can, because this is when you bite off more than you can chew. You believe you can do the impossible. You might feel like you have inordinate amounts of strength where you can move mountains. I mean, just watch what Trump thinks he can do in the next week or two. This kind of square, those are the people who are the go-getters. They want to go do stuff. But it's going to be really hard if you get really enthusiastic about something in the next week. It's going to be hard to stick to your guns, because the other thing that's happening now, you have the sun squaring that. So this is going to be testing your will and your ego to go, because when you have Mercury squaring here too, you're just going to kind of want to slack off. Okay? You're just going to be, it'll be more talk than action. It's going to be harder to walk the walk. There's going to be ambitious goals. People are just going to be sticking their foot in their mouth. And it's going to be a very confident energy. And the thing is, whenever this happens with the moon in Sagittarius, this is where Trump gets more Trumpy. And now his communication is going to get blown up. He is going to go to another planet. I can't even. So this week, you guys, you have to stay grounded. You have to stay grounded. That is where you'll make your most progress. If you are sticking to facts and linear black and white tasks, and you're getting that done and you're getting that organized, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't get too dreamy. Don't get too fantasy-like. But here's the thing. This full moon in Pisces coming up is going to be exposing and revealing so much. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt this next week headed into the full moon, because it's just going to be crazy. And nobody's going to be able to say anything or do anything that's going to make it better. This is where the healing is happening behind the scenes. that we can't see, but it's almost like, like the bank of a river or the shore of a lake, where things are kind of dirty and messy. It's just kind of that gentle, repetitive, gentle waves washing over the shore, that all of a sudden it's clean and clear. And we don't know how it happened. It just happened. It's kind of like that. And we're transitioning to a new season. So everything's going to be upside down. I'm not going to have any answers for you except just wait. Okay. So you know what? I was just introducing this full moon. I do want to tell you that in Washington, D.C., on the ascendant, we have Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. Donald is a Gemini. It is going to be square, and he's in a grand cross himself with all these planets. It's just going to be really confusing. It's, I just don't even want to, it's just blah, 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 blah. Like on the Peanuts, when the teacher would talk, and you would just hear blah, 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 blah in the background. That's just it. He is just not going to make sense. The thing to keep your eye on, though, the midheaven is at 12 degrees Aquarius. That is ruled by Uranus. This is what I don't like with this setup. Uranus, the planet of unexpected, sudden events, shocking information. It's in the 12th house of hidden secrets and enemies. And Donald drew the 10 swords. And it has a nice angle to Saturn here in the 8th house of taxes. It is interesting that the Page of Pentacles, which is Jared, is also here, and he's got a lot of stuff going on. This Taroscope also has 29 degrees on the 1st and the 7th house cusps. You know what I like? I don't like those because that's the ending of something. Usually we see this when we have unwanted events happening. I am not seeing that like I saw with last month's, or the Taroscopes for the new moon. So I think that's all I want to say about this right now, because I can't say anything more to explain this and what's happening except, just hold on, chill out, take it with a grain of salt, and, just get off of social media, because this is the week to get away, because everyone's going to be fighting about everything and nothing. And nothing's going to happen. You know what I mean? So, I do, actually, the reason why I got to this is because we got to look at Rebecca Mercer, because her Taroscope was rather jaw-dropping to me. So that's what we're going to go to next. Okay, thanks, you guys. This is the end of part 1. Thanks.